Welcome to Alchemy with Melanie for a new moon update on January 21st, 2023. So basically what happens is, we are all one. We all exist in this universe together. And so we're all experiencing very similar things. And a lot of us aren't even aware of that. And so what happens is when you find yourself in this space and you resonate with these videos, I always get these messages of people that are like, I just feel so seen and heard. Like, that's exactly what I was going through. And it's because, you guys, we are all one. Whether or not you want to realize that, and if you want to deny it, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we truly are connected through this web in such a grand way that you will probably never even scratch the surface of understanding how much, right? Everyone is just a mirror reflection of us. Everything that happens within the world is just a mirror reflection of us. We are the universe experiencing itself, right? So if you find yourself looking at these videos and they're really ringing true for you, it's because you're part of like this cluster within the collective consciousness, right? So we have this entire whole, but then within the whole, we have these little pieces and these little groups. And so if you've been guided to these videos and to be part of this community, it's because you resonate with this particular cluster of people. And so the information that I will have is information that will be able to help you because you're either on a similar timeline or I have lived through experiences that you're currently going through. And so what happens is before these new moon updates, I get basically these downloads that show me what the collective needs to hear. And so I work through them myself. And then when it comes time to do this video, it just comes out. There's really no plan to it. There's no structure. Just all that there is before is a prayer about how can we make sure that the information that comes through me is the information that this collective needs to hear. And it's always just perfect as it is. So without further ado, let's get started. So before talking about what I want to talk about on the new moon, we need to somehow address Christmas. It's kind of a funny thing. It's like we can't go forward until we go backwards for a second, which is also the theme of what's been happening. We've all been going backwards to take a forward step. And so if you've been feeling like you've been taking 5 steps forward, 10 steps back, this is why. So we're going to work through all of these things today. So Christmas time. So Christmas time is like a subconscious disaster for everyone. So what happens over Christmas is we have this extraordinary amount of stress plugged into 1 month. Okay. So what it's doing is challenging our belief systems over money mainly. So when we think about what happens at this holiday time, we're being forced to spend money on people that we don't have, and a lot of people will go out of their way to just keep up appearances or to please other people, and it's at the expense of their self. And some of us might have boundaries on this, but this is like just a really, really difficult thing because you don't want to disappoint people. You also don't want to look bad, right? So there's like a lot of ego that comes up around this time because our ego doesn't want us to feel rejected. Our ego doesn't want us to be playing this role of somebody who's not generous or somebody who's poor or somebody who doesn't give good gifts or so there's just this interesting competition around Christmas time, and it puts so much pressure on everyone. And if you're already broke at Christmas time, my God, does this ever get highlighted, right? So now you've got this additional pressure to come up with money for food. You're making these big meals for everyone, and how many different Christmas parties are you going to? You might have to bring a dish to every party that you're going to, or you might be hosting, right? Then you've got gifts, and you hope that it's just within your family, but sometimes there's like work offices that want you to also spend money, and you have gift exchanges. And then there's like extended family, and maybe you come from a family that's divorced, and so you're buying gifts for everybody. Like, it can get really crazy if we're like not having boundaries on this, and it can be very difficult to even set those boundaries in the first place. It's just a really challenging time, and so the throat chakra gets really disrupted during this time because like I said, we're needing to state our boundaries. We're needing to say what we want to say. And this is where a lot of our trauma can come out, because if you're feeling like you have to do something and you feel like really resentful about it, and it feels like you have to, there's nothing you can do about it, because that's how we all feel around these holiday seasons. It's really going to bring up the times for you in your childhood that you felt that you didn't have a choice, and that you were controlled, and that you were potentially not being able to live life the way that you would want, right? And this is where like this translates into our adulthood, right? So we end up just bending our rules for everyone, and just taking the path that everybody else wants us to take, and fitting into the molds that everybody else has planned for us. And so it's very interesting to see how this plays out throughout the throat chakra throughout this holiday time. So those are things and triggers that are coming up, and you may or may not be aware of them, but that's what happens. And so on some level, we might be conscious of it. And if you're not conscious of it, you're going to be like, why am I spiraling right now? And like, why does this feel so hard? And that's why. It's because it's like digging up stuff that's like been buried, and it's digging up these patterns and these belief systems, and this unresolved trauma that we don't normally see throughout the other months of the year. So the next thing is that during holiday time, we are put in a lot of different family dynamics. So like I said, if you're divorced or your family's divorced and you've got all these different families, now I'd say you're married and you both have divorced families, like it just gets crazy, right? At the holiday times, we're forced to spend time around people that we normally wouldn't spend time with, and it's a lot of people, and it's often, right? There's never just one Christmas thing. It's always, you know, Christmas, and then Boxing Day, and then New Year's, and then, you know, maybe you have multiple family dinners, right? And then you have a work Christmas party, like then you've got your kids' Christmas concerts. It's just crazy. Like it's mayhem. And I don't know why it's like this, and it really needs to shift and change, because it's just too much pressure on everyone. So the next thing is your worthiness really comes up around Christmas. So a lot of people are either, you know, anticipating a bonus at work. Like, did I perform right? Like, how did I do? Like, am I going to get a good bonus? And then, you know, what kind of gift does my boss get me? And then that really kind of will have this like weird internal thing that happens for you when you're going to be like, okay, thanks, or no thanks, right? So it really brings up that sense of worthiness. And also, if you're not in a relationship, it can be just a really devastating time for people. So a lot of people are alone on Christmas, especially in the last few years with the way that things have been. Some people are spending it alone, and some people are really noticing around the holiday times that deep sense of loneliness that you might not otherwise notice throughout the rest of the year, because you're going really slow, and you don't have all these couples in your face and families in your face, right? So if someone's trying to have a family and it's not working, you know, it's going to be a sad time for them. If somebody is going through a divorce, it's going to be a really sad time for them to see all these people being happy and going through, you know, joyful moments as a family unit when they're in the middle of a crisis and their whole life is falling apart. I know when I was going through a divorce, it was brutal. I just wanted to like shut off the holiday and like fast forward, and I just wanted to stay in bed. Like it was just, I just wanted to skip that year. It was nothing personal. It was just, I wanted to skip it altogether. So yeah. And then if you're in a relationship and there's tension in your relationship, and it's already kind of on the fritz, Christmas with the finances and the family and the dynamics and the stress and the extra everything is going to basically be that final push sometimes for some relationships that they're just going to burst, right? So it gives that extra tension that we don't necessarily need, but sometimes it's exactly what we need in order to choose a different path, right? So and then the other thing that's happening around the holidays is that we're exhausted, right? We're eating too much sugar. Our we're eating too much food, we're not getting enough sleep at all, we're spending a lot of money, so we're extra stressed out, and then we've got all these pressures of making sure your house is cleaned and preparing the kids for the Christmas concert, and we got to go to this and we got to go to that, and we got to do the Christmas shopping, and we got to have an outfit to wear, and maybe we need multiple outfits to wear, and you know, you've got the pressure of buying the right gifts and making everybody happy, and it's a lot. It's really a lot. And then if you have a job that you're gonna take a couple of weeks off of, you're spending all of your energy to like finish your files, or just put everything in place and complete it before that's happening, and complete it before the new year, right? So it's just it's exhausting, the whole process, and we're over socializing and we're intermingling our energy with a lot of people's energy, and that in itself gets really confusing, because no matter what, like, we're all sponges, and the people that you're surrounding with are going to affect your energy no matter what. They're going to affect your thought process, they're going to affect how you feel. So it's just a lot. We are overextending our energy beyond in this month of December, and then throughout the first and second week of January, right? So it's a lot. So now we've got New Year's that comes in January, and we never feel ready for it because we're exhausted from everything that just happened over Christmas. So we've got this pressure to be like, okay, yeah, new year, new me. I've got these resolutions. What do I want for myself? And you're like, I don't even know. I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. I want everybody to leave me alone. And then before you know it, you're back at work. And so now what has been your vacation or your 2 weeks off, you're back at work, and you're actually more exhausted than you were before you took the time off. Right? So, and this isn't going to be the case for everyone. Some people have really, really amazing boundaries, or maybe some people live in a different country away from their family, so they don't have these pressures as much. But with that also comes another set of pressure when you miss your family and you're longing for the people that you love, or, you know, if somebody has passed on, there's that sadness too of missing someone. So it's a wild time in the collective, and we all feel it on a subconscious level, whether we're, you know, cognitive of that or not. So once we get into about the third week of January, which is about now, this is when we really start to think about our new year, right? So it's like we're a little bit behind. We start to think about, okay, where the hell am I going now, and what am I doing? Like, I gotta get my head on straight. So we're basically just like wrapping everything up and then starting an entirely new foundation for ourselves. So we've now completed a lot of tests, we've closed a lot of cycles, and we've got this forward momentum that wants to come up. And it also comes in alignment with spring, right? So it's January, you know, the weather starts getting a little bit nicer, and then by March we have springtime. So you can start to feel it. Everybody is at their peak with feeling, if you live in winter areas like I do, like it's all snow, and by this time, like January, everybody's losing their mind. Like, it's like a month, 2 months, 3 months away from like things starting to improve in the weather, and you can really start feeling the itch happening about spring coming, and you feel like you just like want to burst out of this prison and just like live. You want things to be like flourishing, and you want there to be like new growth, you want there to be new beginnings, you want there to be joy and socialization and things to look forward to. There's just this beautiful feeling that comes with spring, and this renewal sensation that happens, and we're all just longing for it so much, because right now we're not getting very much daylight, right? Like, our daylight is very limited, and it makes us feel really depressed, and we can get really hard on ourselves during this time and feel like, what is wrong with me? Why am I feeling so depressed? Why is everything so extra hard for me? Like, why don't I care about anything? Why am I so lazy? Why, right? Like, why do I feel like this? And it's like, you guys, we just came out of the hardest 2 years that we've ever been through, ever. Everyone. And now, like, we don't have sunlight, right? And we're in the cold months. Like, winter is that time for going within, and it's a time to shed, and it's a time to heal, and it's time to restore and integrate and basically prepare for this next cycle that's going to come with spring. So it's really time to think about this cycle now. So we're going to pair it with New Year's and think about like, what is it exactly that you want? We need to start building this new foundation. We live in a totally new world now. Nothing is ever the same as it used to be, and it will never be. It is absolutely just uncharted territory. And you're a new person. You are not the same person that you were a year ago or 2 years ago. And so as you're learning yourself, you're also learning what that means when it comes to what type of life you want to live and what you want it to look like. Like, everything's been really discombobulated. So we're basically starting a brand new movie and we're writing the script. Okay. So what do you want? Do you know what you want? Okay. You have to be really specific about what you want when you're building this foundation. And the way that we get specific about what we want is we experience a lot of what we don't want. That gives us clarity, right? So those polarity moments are really good, because when something comes up that we have an aversion towards, or something that's less than desirable or doesn't go our way, we can now frame in our mind, oh, I don't like that. I'd like to see this instead. So that becomes now your new blueprint. You're like, we're aiming for this now. So what are you aiming towards? What do you want your life to look like at home? What do you want your home to be like? What kind of sanctuary are you building within your home? Your home should be your peace. Your home should be your palace. Your home is a sanctuary. So, this is often the time that we start purging things. It's a good idea to go through the closets, get organized. It's a good time to start building a foundation, and a good time to build a routine, right? And then from there, you can start to think about, what new things am I bringing in? Like, what are my goals? What am I working towards? What are my dreams? And what am I doing every day in order to achieve those dreams? So, and as we're thinking about what we're trying to manifest in the new year, it's interesting because we have a lot of fearful stories that creep in, right? We ask ourselves, like, what do we want? But then we also tell ourselves these stories that we can't have what we want, right? So it's interesting. Like, if you're thinking about a relationship, for example, and you're like, okay, this is the kind of guy that I'm looking for, or the kind of woman that I'm looking for, and you're like, this is my ideal person. But then in your head goes, oh, well, but I have to bring it down just a little bit because that's more realistic, right? But like, why are we always putting a ceiling on things? Why are we always putting these conditions on what we can have, right? Why do we tell ourselves these stories about what we can achieve? Why don't we just instead get curious and say, like, how could I achieve that? How could life get better? What if I just push past this barrier that I have in my mind about what I can have, like this limitation of what I can have? And what if I just dip my toes over the edge onto the other side and see what happens if I just aim a little bit higher, just a little bit higher? What if I aim a little bit higher than my parents did? Okay, because that's where our conditioning comes from, is everyone from before us. So can you push further past that envelope? Can you have more, right? So if you're living in a house right now that you don't love, what do you want in a house? Start to get clear about that. Where do you want it to be? What do you want it to look like? How big do you want it to be? How much money do you want it to cost? And don't go into your mind right away and say, well, I can't have that. That's not going to happen for me. That only happens for rich people. That only happens for lucky people. That only happens for people in a relationship. Like, what are the stories that you tell yourself? There's always a million that we do, right? If you're in a job and you're like, well, I don't like my boss. I don't like the people I work with. I wake up every morning and I dread getting out of bed. I just want to put the covers back over my head. I don't enjoy what I'm doing. It feels like I just don't care and I just hate my life. Okay, well, it's time to start thinking about getting out of there, right? And if you don't ever put in the action to get out of there, you're never going to be out of there. Like, it's simple, but we get so stuck in our habits that we just don't do anything about it, because change is so incredibly hard, right? So if you're at work and you don't want that job, start applying for new jobs. Or if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, start building your business on the side. But the thing is that you actually have to do it. You actually have to take action steps. Otherwise, you're never going to be anywhere new. If you're applying for new jobs, like, you actually have to send out your resume and actually apply for the new job, right? And don't just go for jobs that you think that you can do. Go for the jobs that are aiming just even a little bit higher. And really just tell yourself when you're applying, like, you know what, I am worth a job that I enjoy, and I am gonna just really see what I can do. Like, you already have a job, so it's not like you're desperate for a job. So you have bargaining power. You can go to interviews and you can say no. But at least you tried, and at least you put yourself out there to see what other options there are. But right now, you're only limiting yourself to the option that you're in, and you don't even like it. So you're kind of perpetuating your own misery, right? So just take it a step further, put in some action every single day, and see where you can get. Start asking questions, get curious. Like, ask the universe when you wake up in the morning, universe, how can my life get better? Universe, how can I find a job that I love to do every day? Universe, how can I align to a career that makes me happy and fills me with joy, and a career that I want to wake up every day and do? Like, I just jump right out of bed. Okay, like, we have to start asking questions instead of just feeding fearful thoughts. What are the thoughts that you're telling yourself? Are you aware of those thoughts that are coming up during the day anytime that you're thinking about doing something new? What are the thoughts? Like, am I not good enough? Am I too tired? Good things don't happen to me. You know what I mean? Like, just start to be very, very aware of those thoughts. And when those thoughts come in, flip the script on them. So if your example is, you're like, oh, well, I'll apply for this job, but I don't know, I never usually get the job. Flip your script to say, okay, I'm going to apply for this job, and I know I'm going to get it because I deserve it. Or you can say, I'm going to be applying for jobs, and I trust that the right job is going to come to me in the right timing. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, erase those shitty, fearful thoughts and the thoughts that are not going to get you anywhere forward, and replace them with something new. All right, so then the next thing that we want to talk about here is when we're trying to manifest anything, we're using the law of attraction, right? And a lot of the times people say to me, like, well, you know, I've been trying to manifest this, but it's not happening. Well, sometimes your beliefs and blockages do not let you see any further than your current reality. And so sometimes what needs to happen is that you need to do this inner work, and you need to go into the shadows, and you need to address why you think the thoughts that you think. Where did they come from? Where did they originate? Why do you feel the way that you do? And the issue is that these things are subconscious, so they're very deep down, and they're, you know, they've become habits, and they've become patterns, and a lot of them are inherited from our ancestry, and we are so unaware of them because they're subconscious, right? So when we go into healing purposefully, we're making the subconscious conscious, and then we can see those patterns and those blockages. And then what happens is all the things that you were trying to manifest before suddenly are just rolling. Everything's falling into place, and it's because you've kind of like removed the plug. So it's like, say there's like a dirty bathtub full of water, and you're like, oh my god, I just want to, like, I want this bathtub to be empty because I want to fill it with clean, clear, warm, hot water. But it's like, okay, well, in order to do that, you need to pull the plug and drain the dirty water first, right? So this is why healing is just so important, and why really fixing our thoughts to be more positive and hopeful really makes the biggest difference ever. And if you struggle with positive thoughts, the biggest thing that always works for me is I think about what I'm grateful for. So you cannot be simultaneously grateful for something and also be in a fearful thought at the same time. They're just on the opposite spectrum. So every morning I have it in my practice to list absolutely everything that I can think of that I'm grateful for. And it can be something simple, like I'm grateful for my dogs, I'm grateful for the roof over my head. But then it's also like I find gratitude for the things that I have accomplished. You know, maybe it's even something, say I've been meaning to go through boxes for like a year in my basement, and I finally did it. I find gratitude for that. I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful that I finally did that, right? Or I'm grateful for the person that smiled at me. It can be something very simple, like at the grocery store. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for the birds this morning. Like there's really no limit to what you can find gratitude for. And if you do this practice every day, you'll notice like this insanely significant shift in your life, and your brain is going to start reaching for thoughts that are more harmonious, more positive, more filled with light, right? So your thoughts are going to be less dark, less shadowy, and they're going to be more surrounded around feeling powerful rather than feeling powerless, right? The more that we focus on the good, the more good we're going to see externally reflected in our reality. The more that we focus on the bad, though, we're going to see more bad reflected in our reality, right? It's like where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're only focusing on the bad things, well, you better believe it, you're going to continue to get confirmation of all bad things, because that's where your current mindset is at. So shift your focus. Okay? What are you using your thoughts and your feelings to propel towards? Like, what is getting your energy? What is it being used for, right? We want to use it for productive things, and things that are going to help us get forward, instead of things that are going to keep dragging us into the past or dragging us down, right? But it is very difficult to train our minds, and you can think that you've made a lot of progress and that you're going forward and that things feel good, and you're much better at the way that you talk to yourself. You're more compassionate towards yourself. You have a much better outlook on life, and you're much more compassionate towards other people, and things are more harmonious. But then, your old belief systems will come up, and some more layers of the onion will come up for your healing, and you're gonna feel like you've gone backwards, and you're gonna be like, oh my God, I thought I dealt with that. I thought I healed it. I thought like, oh, I was in that place. Why am I back here? But like, don't be hard on yourself. These things take time, and like I said, healing comes in layers like an onion. You peel off one layer, well, there's another layer underneath, unfortunately. And so it's like we just continue to address them and address them and address them until one day we've gotten down to the core, the root of the onion, and once that's out of there, hey, we're smooth sailing. So we really just have to choose that we don't want to live in fear anymore. Like, no thank you. We want to choose to see out of the lens of possibility and magic, instead of the lens of lack or the lens of like trying to keep yourself safe, right? Because then you're keeping yourself stuck. So you don't have to live in that reality. You can choose the reality that you're living in based on the thoughts that you're thinking and what you believe about the world and what you believe about yourself to be true. Okay. So as we're trying to manifest our new life, and we're clear about what exactly it is that we're seeking, the most common thing that's going to happen is self-sabotage, right? So it's important to get clear now in January, which we've all been getting clear on, is where have we been spending our time and our energy on, right? So Christmas took absolutely every ounce of energy that we had. And so a lot of us probably had a mental breakdown. I really felt it in the collective that we went into a really dark space after all of this because of the exhaustion and just feeling pulled in all these directions. And what happens is when you're pulled in all those directions and your energy is really fragmented, it's like everything is going to eventually snap back, and then you're just going to like fall to your knees, basically, right? But what happens is when you fall to your knees, you get back up, right? And you get back up from like a different perspective this time. So if you've been pissed off enough about being in this place where your boundaries were not great, and you overgave, you overdid, and it was at the expense of yourself, what are you going to do going forward? Well, you're going to make sure that never happens, right? So there's a benefit to these things happening, these experiences that aren't so positive, because we can make these shifts for ourselves and make these new vows to ourselves, like, listen, I'm never going to do that to you again, and so I've got your back, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not diluting myself too much, and that I'm not going to burn myself out, and I'm not going to overgive, and I'm not going to overdo, right? So we really need to just focus on what are we spending our energy on. We have to get our shit together. Okay, we need to have a good routine, good habits, Where are we spending our time? Where are we spending our money? Where are we directing our thoughts? And where are we directing our emotions? Like, are we directing our emotions towards like the things that we hate, the people that we hate? Like, do an inventory of your life and start to think about, like, if there's this person in my life that brings me nothing, they bring me no peace, and it's not a give and take relationship, and I find myself just in a really bad space after I'm hanging out with this person, we really need to figure out how to eliminate that, because you really don't owe anyone your time, and you have to be really careful about what you're giving your time and attention to. So the people, the places, the TV shows that you're watching, the music you're listening to, the podcast you're listening to, the social media that you're consuming, like each time we're having any of those interactions, we are giving our energy to someone. So just imagine you have 100% energy battery in a day, and then you go and do all those things, and you go do work things and whatever in the grocery store and this and that. You have no battery left at the end of the day. And it's like most days we're going into overdraft. So we can't go into overdraft anymore. That needs to be like the bare minimum. We cannot go into overdraft with our energy. And if we want to dial it back even more, we're really going to be conscious of where all of our energy is going to, and dial it back, dial it back, dial it back. Like beyond yourself and beyond like your kids, usually you actually, in your job, you usually don't have energy for anything else. And so you need to really get clear about what are the things that you can say no to or prioritize. Like maybe once a month you visit all your friends in one day. You know what I mean? Or, you know, maybe once a month you go shopping, or maybe you give yourself a time limit of I only spend 30 minutes on social media. Because when our energy is being siphoned, it's going to deplete our vitality. We're going to start to notice health symptoms coming up. We're going to start to notice negative thoughts coming up, because we've immersed ourselves in everybody else's thoughts, and we're picking up on other people's energy, and it's affecting our own. When we're tired and exhausted, we tend to have, thoughts that are not very, they're not very geared towards feeling powerful, right? You tend to feel a lot more powerless and more in like a victim state. So we really need to get clear on where we're directing everything. So take track of it and see how much ridiculous shit that you waste, how much time you waste. We need to start directing ourselves towards the thing that we want. So if you have goals, stop wasting time on social media. Stop wasting time hanging out with people you don't even want to hang out with. Stop wasting time doing things that don't matter. Like, you're not going to get where you're going if you keep letting these things distract you, right? So what are you consuming? So we need to think about, when we're implementing this routine, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, you really need to set up your day in a way that is structured to feel like you have a new day every day. So for me, what I do is I have this routine where I sit down, I make a cup of tea. Well, actually, I use my china. So I use my china every day, because I think, life is worth living, and why don't we use the good things that we have instead of like saving them for a special day. Like, every day is a special day. You're alive. I don't know if I'm gonna die tomorrow, so why am I not using the good dishes? So I take out my china in the morning, I drink my tea, then I have some breakfast, or do it the other way around, but and then I journal about my gratitude. I journal about my gratitude, and then I journal about just like the thoughts I'm thinking, the things that are coming up for me, and I get out on paper everything that's bothering me so that I can just leave it for the day. And then I make myself a to-do list for the day. So, and I'm not hard on myself about my to-do list. As long as I accomplish like 2 or 3 things on that to-do list, I feel happy and I feel like I've done something. But that's why, like, we can get that like nice reward thing going on in that gratification in our mind, is if we have this to-do list in the morning and we've set our intention towards something, and you complete even 1 or 2 of them, it's going to give you that dopamine, right? And it's going to give you that feeling like you've done something and accomplished something. And then immediately your brain wants to actually accomplish and do more. So then it's looking forward to the next day where it can do that again. So even if all you did was make your bed, that act of just making your bed is going to make you want to complete another task. So it's just really important to have these structures that you're doing. And then again, like I said, when you have your intention set on something, your energy is going to naturally want to direct towards it. So if you just have no intention, you're basically like a fart floating around in the wind, right? But if you have intention for something, you're grounding it and centering it, and then it has somewhere to distribute and to go. Like it has its own lane now that it can go towards. So the energy itself is going to be kind of like driving now that you put it into the car, right? Okay, so the other thing is that when we're trying to develop our new routines and we're trying to develop strategies for our goals and to manifest the life that we want and to be this new version of ourselves for the new year and to be the best you, they usually fail. And they usually fail because we're not realistic on what we can achieve, and we do not continue with the pattern. We give up, or something happens and we lose motivation, but then we don't begin again, right? So don't set yourself up for failure. Just give yourself what is reasonable. You don't need to do it all in one day, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, okay? Slow and steady really does win the race. If you think about it, if you just build your foundations, they're going to flourish, right? If you have a small pot and you plant a seed in there, the roots are only going to grow as big as that pot, right? Which means that the branches are just going to be small and they're not going to be that supported. If wind was to come along or a hurricane, the roots in the pot aren't really that long or strong. So, those branches are going to break. Whereas if we take the time to set up a bigger pot, and we take the time to fertilize it and make sure that we have well-drained soil and that it gets proper sunlight, and these roots are going to grow really thick and deep and strong, and you're going to have this like such a strong and deep foundation that your branches can extend outward, and they're going to be really strong, and they're going to be even more flourishing, right? So apply that to you in your life. Like, these things take time, and the more attention that you give these things, the more they're going to develop into a habit, like a muscle. Like, you go to the gym, you're not going to go lift weights for 3 days and then be like, oh wow, I have huge arms. No, like it takes repetitive motion. You have to continue to go to the gym. You have to continue to eat well in order to get those big muscles. So you can apply that to anything. If you're building a business, you just have to keep doing it. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Things are going to come up that are going to throw you off your path, but you have to just get back up and do it again and keep going. And you're going to go through so much trial and error. You're not going to figure anything out right away. And we usually figure things out by doing it wrong, right? So be gentle on yourself when those things are happening. Like, your life didn't come with a manual, and these things didn't come with a manual. So just give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of compassion. And the more compassionate that you are to yourself, you actually flourish. Okay? Like, there's this experiment, right? When it's Dr. Emoto's water experiment. They did it with rice too, but basically they had some like drops of water, and they would say different things to the water. So they would say, I hate you, I love you, and then other water they would put like crazy scary metal music, and in other ones they would use like orchestra music, and then they would put them under the microscope to see how it changed the water molecules. And it's mind-blowing when you see it. Like, there's these beautiful structures on the ones that are, being told beautiful messages or being played beautiful sound, and then on the ones that are being told evil messages, that you're evil or I hate you, and or they're playing this like scary music, the molecules in this water structure are like terrifying. Like, the pattern is not good. It looks terrible. Whereas like you go to these nice ones and you're like, wow, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen created, right? So it's the same thing with you. If you're talking to yourself nicely and you're compassionate with yourself, you're going to be building that like crystalline structure within yourself, that foundation, that like inner cheerleader, that inner parent, that inner support system, that inner ambition. Like, you're gonna feel good about yourself, and then when you feel good about yourself, you're gonna do good, right? But if you're talking to yourself mean, and you're harsh to yourself, and you're constantly calling yourself names and putting yourself down, and you're way too hard on yourself, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get any further than where you started. Honestly, I spent many years in that place myself. So You don't have to pressure yourself to have it figured out all today. Like, you still need to play and you still need to live. Imagine if you were behind someone who's trying to do something, like has a goal and they're trying to change their habits or quit drinking or maybe they're trying to build a business or whatever, and you're behind them smacking them with a stick. Like, do you think they're gonna get anything accomplished? They're gonna be like, ow, ow, like, what are you doing? Oh, you're distracting me, right? So just think about it like for yourself. If you're not treating yourself well and being compassionate with yourself during these shifts, and you're smacking yourself with a stick, how far do you think you're gonna get, right? And you could use this example also about, like, if you plant a seed and you're trying to get a plant to grow, you're not going to stand there and scream at it and tell it, why aren't you growing? Like, why aren't you growing? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you growing? Why aren't you a flower yet? And it's like, well, actually it needs water, soil, sun, some fertilizer, some time. It needs time, you know? So that's a really great example. Another great example is, like, if you're a toddler trying to learn how to ride a bike without training wheels, and if you get on those training wheels, if you take them off too fast, you're going to fall over, right? So you got to, like, practice with your training wheels, and then you take off the training wheels and then you get on the bike. You're probably going to fall, but you're going to get back up and you're going to do it again. And then before you know it, you're riding a bike and you're like, when did I learn how to ride a bike? This is amazing. And then you cannot ride a bike for like 10 years and still pick it up and know how to ride a bike. Like, it just becomes this, like, this inner knowing and this inner habit that's just now possible, right? So all things are possible with time and love and effort and dedication and intention. You just need to have the thought about what you want, and then you need to amplify it with the feeling. You need to really feel like you're going to get what you want. You're going to need to really feel excited about where you're going. You're going to need to put your thoughts and your feelings towards what you're looking for. But then you need to put in the action. The action is like the treadmill, right? Like, you need to have all those things together for this recipe to create anything in your life. Okay. And you don't need to be a perfectionist along the way. Life was never meant to be perfect. No one's perfect. There's really no such thing. And you don't need to be likable, acceptable, accepted, or you don't need to impress others. Like, who's living your life? You. No one else is living your life. And so your life needs to be built according to what you want, not what your parents want, not what your friends want, not what anybody else wants. What do you want? What would be the most harmonious life for you? What would make you the happiest? What would make you feel like the most you? That's the goal in life, is how can I feel the most like myself? How can everything I have and do in my life be in alignment with really how I want to feel or where I'm going? And trust me, I've been on the opposite end of this spectrum, and I've completely changed it myself in the last 12 years. Like 12 years ago, I worked in the law firm. Not 12 years ago, like 8 years. What year are we in? So 10 years ago. Yeah, so 10 years ago, I was in the law firm, and like, I was good at my job, and I, you know, did a great job, and I was in the best law firm I could be in finally, and I was making great money, great bonuses, you know, great benefits. And I wasn't happy because it just wasn't me. You know, we all have this like song to sing that's been planted within us when we're brought here onto planet Earth. And, you know, if you're not singing it, you're going to be deeply, deeply unsatisfied. And you might not know what that song is. I sure didn't know 12 years ago, but I knew that there was something. I was like, okay, there's got to be more than just like going to a job I don't enjoy. Like, if my circumstances are this good and I'm still unhappy, like, why? And so I started to ask myself, like, why am I unhappy? Like, why is that my pattern to be unhappy? And I really started to go deep into my healing. But then I also started to see that, like, why am I telling myself that this is what I have to do? Like, why does society tell us that we have to work a job 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, have 2 weeks vacation, and that's life? Like, that is not living to me, and that just wasn't acceptable. So I quit my job one day and I opened up a yoga studio, a wellness center. So, you know, at one point this business grew into 35 staff and 2 yoga studios and acupuncture rooms, massage rooms, a retail store, you know, workshops, trainings. And it was just this really big, successful business. And I didn't have the money to start it. I didn't know what I was doing when I started it, but I just put in the thought and the emotion, and I just started to take actions towards it. I started to ask questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? How could I do this? And I started to act as if I already had it. So I would go start to look for spaces. I would start to create ads in my Microsoft Word about like if I was going to be hiring teachers. I would start to like have a plan. I would write myself letters like, you know, it's the year blah blah blah, and this is the life that we're living now, and this is how it is, and you're really happy to be doing your life purpose. And there's just all these little strategies that we can do that are gonna get our brain to start thinking about where we're going. So like I am a prime example of this. I've built 2 businesses in my life with no money, with zero knowledge how to do it, but all I did was I just kept showing up for it, asking questions, and just seeing what happens. Okay, so it's like if you want to build muscle, or you want to get lean at the gym, you actually have to go to the gym. Right? Like, I don't like the gym myself. Like, that is not for me. I have learned to be happy with my body and love myself the way I am, instead of pushing myself to go to the gym because I hate it and I don't enjoy it, and then I always end up injuring myself. That's the thing, right? Like if we're being mean to ourselves, like I was going to the gym with this intention that I don't like my body and I need to change myself. So of course I kept figuring out like, it's interesting. Every time I finally get the gumption to go to the gym, I'm doing really well and I lose a lot of weight, and then I like break my arm, or I sprain my ankle, or I throw out my back, and then I can't go to the gym for 6 months to gain all the weight back and whatever. And when I really started to dissect that pattern, I was like, wow, well, that's why, because I'm not being very nice to myself. I'm beating myself with a stick basically, and I'm trying to change myself into being somebody that I'm not. Like I need to change my mind and my habits, not force myself to do something that just doesn't feel right for my body, right? I don't like the gym. Anyways, my point is, stop trying to be perfect, just focus on being harmonious. We don't need to live other people's lives. We need to just be ourselves, and we need to show up in the way that we want to, instead of the way that we think others want us to. Like, don't let other people's restrictions or thoughts or stories prevent you from going where you want to go in life, and don't let your own get in the way of that either. So just find peace in your head, peace in your heart, and create peace in your home. And once you do those 3 things, you will see peace in the world. It will be reflected externally. So much support will show up to show you the evidence of those things, of having that peace in your head, heart, and home. So make that your focus and be nice to yourself, you guys. Like, remember to just keep showing up, even when it's hard. You're going to take 5 steps forward, 10 steps back, but each time we go back with it's like going back in a slingshot, right? You're going back, you're taking 10 steps back, taking 10 steps back, and you're going into the deep, you're going into the dark, and things feel terrible. But guess what you're doing is you're in a cleansing period. You're monitoring your thoughts, you're analyzing them, you're purging, you're crying, you're going through a bunch of emotions that are arising for you. And it's because we're pulling the slingshot back, and then once you get rid of all those things, you're lighter, and then the slingshot goes forward, and now you go further than you could have than if you didn't go down. So we have to go down sometimes to go up. You need to fall before you can get back up. Things are bad sometimes before they're good. There's always a contraction before an expansion, and the light always comes before the darkness always comes before the light, right? You know, the winter, the spring, the nighttime, the daytime. So be patient with that process. Like, that's never going to end. We're always going to be ebbing and flowing. Life is like this, okay? You don't want your life to be a flat line, because what happens on a heart monitor when, you know, it's always going like this, right? Up and down, up and down. On a heart monitor, if you have a flat line, it's because they flatlined and you're dead, okay? You don't want to flatline in life. If you're going through a straight line, you're stuck, you're not growing, you're unsatisfied, you're just comfortable with being comfortable. Where's the reward in that? The reward comes from challenging ourselves over the comfort zone. It's just dipping ourselves in the water. It's going past where we've gone before. It's going past where we've known before. It's just pushing the envelope. It's like pushing the threshold. That's the only way you're going to have a different life, different circumstances, a different reality. So anyways, I hope that video helped, and if you guys resonate, let me know. I'm definitely going to talk about the root chakra in another video, because that's really what is coming up right now for everyone as we build these foundations. Like the root chakra is really based around, you know, structure and stability and security and survival. And so if we can find ways to heal the root chakra and support the root chakra, we can feel really grounded, secure, full of energy and vitality. And so of course, all of us want to get rid of that anxiousness and feeling unstable and fearful and insecure. So stay tuned for my next video where we're going to work through the root chakra and really make that the foundation for being able to build forward dreams and to be able to shift and change and grow as you are throughout this new year and throughout this new spring energy that's coming. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day and chat soon.